Hey everybody, this is where I pick a game that I'm currently playing and try to explain to you in 10 minutes or less why it's awesome. So this time we're looking at the Stanley Parable, which I'm almost tempted to say is more of an interactive experience than an actual video game, but let's not get hung up on that. What this really is a first-person adventure game with a lot of branching paths and choices. In fact, you could really say that the Stanley Parable is about two fundamental things, exploration and choice. And that's really what the entire experience is about. But let me elaborate on that just a little bit and try to cite a few basic examples of what I'm talking about along the way. So when the game begins, you are playing as this character Stanley, who's sitting in his office in the building where he works, and comes to find that all of the coworkers that he's used to seeing every day have suddenly mysteriously disappeared. And the tasks which he's normally presented with on his computer screen have also mysteriously gone away for no apparent reason. Now, how you as a player deal with this is really one of the first choices that the game presents you with. You can sit here in your office and look at things, or lock yourself in the room, or go out and explore and try to figure out what's going on. The game will tell you via the very loquacious narrator, who is pretty much present throughout the experience as you go from place to place, what it wants you to do or what it thinks you should do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do that. There is some limited interactivity in the game. You see, for example, here I was able to turn that particular computer off by left-clicking on it, but aside from moving forward, backward, left, and right, crouching, and occasionally left-clicking to interact with objects, the interactivity of this game is more about going in one direction or another, or deviating from what you're told to do. Sometimes just doing nothing is making a choice in this game. And the interesting thing about the experience is how all of these different choices you make, some of which are very vital and some of which are very mundane, impact the way things unfold. It's actually possible to go through this experience just doing as you're told and following directions and get from beginning to end of it fairly quickly. But that really only scratches the surface of what's available here to be observed. I think the thing about this game that most excites me is the idea that it addresses that issue that anybody who's played games for any length of time and who's played a wide variety of games inevitably ponders, which is this idea of why doesn't the game let me do what I want to do? Where's that threshold between how the game was designed and what the expectations of the people who designed the game were versus what I as a player want to do? And I think in a lot of ways that's best personified by this first room, which you'll get very familiar with if you spend a lot of time fiddling with the Stanley Parable. This idea of a choice to the left or to the right is fundamental to the gameplay. You will be told by the narrator when you get to this point, you're supposed to go through the left door, but you can choose not to do that. You could choose to stand in this room for a while, and something may or may not happen as a result of that. The whole idea of having things change radically or having your experience deviate radically from what it normally would be based on doing one thing or another or nothing at all is really the crux of what this whole thing is about. So, having said all that, is this a game that you should pick up? I think the questions you have to ask yourself are you the sort of person who likes exploring things, who likes dissecting them and picking them apart and finding all the little ins and outs and hidden parts to them? Or do you just want to have a linear story told to you and kind of make your way through it and call it done. I think if you're a tinkerer, if you're somebody who likes to get creative with things and try to figure out all the different ways that you can mess with a scenario, this game is really going to appeal to you. I think if you're looking to have a really elaborate and sort of passive experience presented to you to just follow along and not have to really ponder it, you probably will get some enjoyment out of this because inevitably you're going to make at least some of the obvious alternative choices as you play through, but you may not get everything there is to get out of this game. I think the bottom line for me, having spent several hours with it, I think there's a lot of real genius in this game and a lot of really cool stuff. I have to really give it to the Stanley Parable as far as being a well-crafted, well-designed, just engaging experience and something that I think you don't see every day in gaming. And in a lot of respects, I think the differences about this experience or the things that make it unique are its biggest strengths. You know, if you're coming to this as somebody who just generally enjoys games set in first person, you may or may not enjoy this particular game's take on that. But at the same time, if you are maybe a little sick of the standard first person fare and you're looking for something a little different and you're looking for something that's a bit out there and outside the box of what you normally expect from games, I think this is something you definitely will want to check out. And scene.